In this video I thought it'd be useful for us to have a look at a worked example of these training zones and thresholds, just so that you're absolutely clear about what this means, and if you're asked to do some calculations or some interpretation of data, then you'll be prepared to do that. So we're going to look at an athlete who's 20 years old. We'll say it's a male athlete, he's 20 years old, and we're going to look at, first of all, finding out what his maximum heart rate is. So based upon what we've just been looking at in our previous video, we will remember that the maximum heart rate is 220 minus the age. And so we know he's 20 years old, so therefore we can do a quick bit of calculation and work out that his maximum heart rate is 200 beats per minute, and we can see that from 220 minus 20 is 200. And so therefore we can draw on our graph there, or on our image, that we've got maximum heart rate of 200 beats per minute up here. So now let's have a look at establishing what the anaerobic training zone will be. Remember, the anaerobic training zone, high intensity, it's going to be quite high up here. So how do we find that? Well, we need to remember that the thresholds and the zone is between 80% and 90% of maximum heart rate. So we know maximum heart rate now is 200, so we need to do a little bit of maths. So we're going to find 80% of 200, and we've got to find 90% of 200. If you've got your calculators there, it would be 0.8 times 200 and 0.9 times 200, but I've done that already. So we've worked out that it's 160 and 180, so it's between 160 and 180 beats per minute. So it's going to be up here somewhere, 160 to 180 beats per minute. So we can put that in there, and there is the anaerobic training zone. So we now know where the anaerobic training zone is. Let's do the same exercise for the aerobic training zone. So again, we're going to go to 60% to 80% of maximum heart rate. These are the thresholds, remember. So the key thing is making sure that you can remember the aerobic training zone is between 60 and 80%, and the anaerobic training zone is between 80 and 90% of maximum heart rate. Again, a little bit of maths, 60% of 200, 80% of 200. I've done that for you as well. So that's 120, between 120 and 160 beats per minute. So that's 120 and 160 beats per minute. So somewhere here we should have, there we go, the aerobic training zone. That's great. So now we know what the training zones are for this athlete who is 20 years old and his maximum heart rate is 200 beats per minute. Let's just quickly recap our understanding of those thresholds as well. Remember, the threshold is this idea of a barrier, a point which we need to pass through in order to be gaining any kind of, or making any kind of gains in terms of our training. So if this athlete is training down here, maybe 100 beats per minute, 110, 180, he's still not making any or many gains in terms of, in that case, his aerobic training, and certainly not his anaerobic training. So the aerobic threshold then, training threshold, would be 120. Okay, remember that's 60% of his maximum heart rate is his aerobic training threshold in this case. And then once he's passed through this, he's going to be getting gains in terms of his aerobic fitness, and then he needs to pass through even further through this point here to get into the anaerobic training zone. So the threshold, the anaerobic training threshold, here we go, is 160 beats per minute, and that is based upon his maximum heart rate of 200 beats per minute.